The nation's oldest and longest-serving juvenile offender is free tonight.
When thinking about a life sentence, we imagine prisoners serving out their final hours behind bars. However, this may not always be true. These inmates had to return to a world that was very different from what they had grown habituated to since they had outlived their time behind bars. On the other hand, despite receiving decades-long prison sentences, some criminals have outlived their sentences. Welcome to True Crime. Let's get started. Number 1. Johnson Van Dyke Griggsby. Johnson Griggsby killed a man in a bar after they got into a fight, and he was given a life sentence. He was an ideal prisoner who stayed to himself, yet before being released, he faced being turned down for parole 33 times. In 1974, he was at last set free after 66 difficult years. When he was released, he was already 89 years old. This meant, of course, that he had to make a significant adjustment to a culture he wasn't a part of. Unable to handle the sudden shift in his employment standing, he willingly went back to prison. By the time of his second release, he was 91. He stayed at the Marion County Healthcare Center. Griggsby died in 1987 at the age of 101. Number 2. Paul Geidel Jr. Paul Geidel's life began with struggle. He left school at the age of 14 after becoming an orphan at the age of 7. He worked as a bellhop in Hartford, New York. Geidel decided to target one of the hotel visitors on July 26, 1911, by breaking into his room and killing him. He managed to escape with almost sufficient funds. After being detained for 2 days, Geidel was found guilty of second-degree murder and given a 20-year to life sentence in jail. Good behavior had shortened his term, and he was getting close to a parole hearing. After that, he was admitted to the Dannemora State Hospital for the criminally insane, where he remained until 1972. After that, he was transferred to Fishkill Correctional Facility. Here, Geidel was housed in an apartment meant for senior prisoners that looked more like a hostel than a jail. As Geidel's time in jail passed, he got to know the guards there, and they occasionally took him on excursions like to a baseball game. In August 1974, Geidel was given release, but the 80-year-old prisoner refused to go. He made the decision to spend nearly 6 more years behind bars. Upon his release from Fishkill on May 7, 1980, Geidel held the record for the longest jail sentence in U.S. history. He spent the latter years of his life in a nursing facility in Beacon, New York, before passing away at the age of 93. Number 3. Joseph Lian. Joseph Lian, who was tragically found guilty of a crime at the age of 15, is well known for being one of the longest-serving prisoners in America and receiving a life sentence when he was still a kid. Alongside other teenagers, he was involved in a series of thefts to purchase alcohol, which resulted in the deaths of several individuals. Since Lian was denied access to legal counsel and family visits while still a minor, it was claimed that his case had deficiencies from beginning to end. They were also given confessions to sign by the police. Although Lian wasn't responsible for taking the life of anyone else, he and the other defendants were convicted of first-degree murder and convicted to serve a life sentence in prison without the chance of release. Lian had fought his case for a very long time with Bradley Bridge, his 15-year attorney. According to Miller v. Alabama, the U.S. Supreme Court decided in 2016 that all juvenile lifers must receive a new sentence. Lian was sentenced to 35 years after that year, with the possibility of parole. On February 11, 2021, at the age of 83, Lian, who had entered jail at the age of 15, returned to a world he little remembered. According to the Vera Institute of Justice, the state of Pennsylvania had to pay $44,000 a year, or about $3 million, for his imprisonment. Number 4. Richard Hanik. Richard Hanik was an American murderer who completed one of the longest jail terms ever in American criminal history. In September of 1899, Richard Hanik was only 20 years old when he was taken into arrest in Chicago. Walter F. Kohler was a former school teacher who was murdered by him and another friend of his, Herman Hundhausen, in an investigation in which Hanik and Hundhausen were accused of starting multiple fires in their hometown of Hundhausen. The two men desired retribution against against him. After that, he was sent to a prison in southern Illinois, where he worked in the prison bakery for 35 years. Hanik eventually had to be transferred to a nursing facility in Roseburg in 1971 due to his poor health, and he lived there for the final 5 years of his life. At the age of 97, he passed away in December 1976. Due to his extended prison sentence, Richard Hanik was the first prisoner who received significant public attention. Even though he received an unreasonably lengthy prison sentence, numerous other cases have since surpassed his record. Number 5. Francis Smith. At the young age of 13, he found himself in a reformatory for young men. After attacking a guard and making his getaway, he was sent to a maximum security facility. Smith joined a group that committed small-time crimes throughout southern Connecticut as he grew older. But by 1949, things had shifted. Smith was imprisoned due to his involvement in the murder of a Greenwich night watchman. At the time, he was 24. He served 10 months on parole prior to being sent back to prison in 1975. On June 7, 1954, the day of Smith's planned execution, Leo Carroll, the case's primary investigator, declared that he had made a mistake. Carroll stated in a last-minute hearing that it was uncertain if Smith was there at the crime scene and that Smith's sentence had just been changed 2 hours prior to his appearance to the chair. Smith was able to be released from prison in September 2020 at the age of 96, having served 71 years considering these discoveries. Smith resides in a nursing facility at the moment. Number 6. Charles Edrit Ford. The conviction of Charles Edrit Ford is only one of the numerous regrettable instances of wrongfully convicted individuals. In 1952, regardless of not being present at the site of the crime, he initially received a life sentence for first-degree murder. While on a leave of absence from prison later in 1975, he was once more charged with second-degree assault. The victim of the incident reported that she had seen a man near a red Ford Pinto, which was legally registered under Ford's name as a rental vehicle. On the other hand, little evidence was offered to the jury throughout the trial to support his guilt, and he wasn't even permitted to call witnesses to provide proof of the fact he wasn't present at the time of the incident. Judge Helen Harrington reopened the 1952 conviction just in 2016 after finding that Ford's attorney had neglected to file an appeal to have his sentence reconsidered and that the trial judge had neglected to notify Ford of his post-trial rights. As a result of this, Judge Harrington was able to dismiss the case. Following the sentencing, Ford broke down in tears in front of the judge. At last, he had the freedom he should earn. Ford was imprisoned for 64 years. He was first admitted at the age of 19, and he was eventually freed on March 23, 2016. Regretfully, Ford found out he had a severe form of lung cancer soon after being released. Despite being set free at last, he lived his final months on charity and donations, which paid for his funeral. Charles Edrit Ford, 84, is finally out after spending 64 years in prison. Our thoughts and prayers go out to those involved. We hope you enjoyed our true crime overview of people who outlived insane prison sentences. Be sure to be a True Crime subscriber and hit the bell icon to never miss another true crime video. Leave a comment and a like to show your support. Until next time, stay safe, and if you have a true crime story you would love to see, please be sure to leave in the comments below. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.